Okay, guys, a new week is upon us, and there's plenty to chat about. We can look back at the narrow win over Motherwell at the weekend and ahead to RB Leipzig in the Champions League. Scott and Asim are on with me. I've already given my thoughts on the weekend on two separate videos, guys, so I'm going to shut up in this video and let you two do the talking. Scott, what's the thoughts on the weekend? What have you made of the reaction from certain people?
Yeah, I'm a little bit more pragmatic in terms of the result was pretty much the most important thing. I think we talked about it leading into the break. It was always important to get back to winning ways. Everyone getting back in the building as well, not having a lot of time to prepare. I think that has a lot to do with it, and just getting the group back together. Yeah, it wasn't an amazing performance. Still a lot of chances to go and kill the game off, and some silly mistakes made a few heart and mouth moments. But you've got to give Motherwell credit as well, how they set up and performed to make things difficult for Celtic at the end of the day. It's not always going to be easy every single game you play, just because Celtic can dominate possession and create chances. Sometimes you have those sticky days. So all in all, though, to get it over the line, again, I think we talked about this last season a lot, didn't we? In terms of no one will remember at the end of the season, so long as the trophy comes back to Celtic Park again. Those important games like these ones, they really matter.
Asim, is there a danger that when we've been winning all of these games so convincingly over the last 4 or 5 months, 4-0 against Rangers, 5-0 against Kelly, 7-0 against St Johnstone a while ago, 9-0 against Dundee United, that you just take these kind of games for granted and expect at least 3-4 goals every single match? And it's not always like that. It's tricky. Motherwell put in a good performance at the weekend, made it difficult for us, and you win games narrowly. Every Celtic team has won games narrowly in the past.
Yeah, I think so. If you look at even last season, we had a lot of narrow one single goal victories, especially at home. So I think it's just the way we've kind of started this season, especially away from home. We've been in scintillating form, and everyone's just kind of expecting that to carry on. I think more so it was probably because it was on the back of the St Mirren game and off the international break. I think in isolation that it was fine. We created lots of chances. If you actually look back, it's probably one of those that at the stadium it's more frustrating than when you look back and you see how many chances we actually created. That could easily have been a 4-5-1 game, and it was good chances. So. I'd be more concerned if we weren't creating because I think against St Mirren that was a concern. We didn't really create much, but right from the first 5 minutes we had chances at the weekend. I think just because it's on the back of the St Mirren defeat, and obviously we hadn't won in 3 games, I think that's maybe where a lot of the kind of potentially overreaction has came. Just that we've had a few games now where we've not been fully firing. But as Scott said, after an international break, the key thing is just getting the points back on the board, getting that winning feeling again. And yeah, it's one of those that you won't remember at the end of the season, but it could be another crucial 3 points because going into that last 5 or 6 minutes, the last thing you wanted was for Motherwell to nick an equaliser, and then everyone's in a kind of downer. So crucial just to see it out and yeah, on to the next one.
You must have loved the Kyogo goal, Scott. It's going in from O'Reilly. It's on the goal line. I thought of you for some reason when that goal went in. I could just
Really?
imagine you doing that. Did you ever
Thanks.
do that?
No, I didn't actually. Thank you. Someone else did that to me though, and I wasn't happy. Did it on a couple of occasions actually, so I wasn't
Was that
best
for
pleased.
Celtic?
There was one for Celtic that I never, I think got. I think it was at Fir Park actually. Actually, Stephen went to head at McManus, and I headed it in, but I never got the credit for the goal. So it was one of them. But and then I think there was one at Middlesbrough as well. I had one that was going in, and then someone tapped it in from a yard. But hey, you've got to be there to score them. And look, at the end of the day, once you mature, it doesn't really matter. I think at the time it did because all you were thinking about was your numbers. And I think for obviously Kyogo wants as many goals as he can get as well and finish with that golden boot. But look, you just don't know sometimes. You're going in that quickly that you're not sure if it's going to go in or not. So I think it's probably one of those occasions.
Yeah, I noticed O'Reilly gave him a wee tap in the back of the head as well when they were celebrating. How much of this wee dip in performance can be put down to Carter Vickers not being around, Scott?
Oh, look, I think he's been an absolute stalwart for Celtic since he came to the club. He's been a revelation. He come a little bit unknown. Obviously, he was at Tottenham. He went on loan into the Championship as well in England. But yeah, I think he's been the real mainstay and the rock for Celtic's backline. Obviously, no Starfelt either. And look, you can tell me, is he going to be back for midweek, Cardiff? Is there any hope for him being back for Leipzig?
I think it is, judging from what Ange just said, I wouldn't have a great deal amount of hope.
Yeah.
I think the latest after the game was we'll take it day to day, so maybe we'll get a boost, but I wouldn't be counting on it.
Yeah, you just never know with Ange. He never gives you a straight answer, does he?
Yeah.
So it would be a pleasant surprise to see him back in there, and a big plus for Celtic, because obviously need 3 points midweek to have any chance, really, or an opportunity, I think, to keep going into the next phases of the Champions League. But no, yeah, he's the most important player in terms of that back line for Celtic. He brings a composure as well. He's very good on the ball, bringing it out, as we've seen time and again. And obviously in a 1v1 situation, very, very comfortable as well. So you do miss his leadership. And obviously that was one thing that Celtic had, was consistency in that centre-back pairing last season, which they haven't had to, haven't been able to call upon that so far this year. But, Lons has done a good job as well. And obviously Welsh has been sort of up and down. So, look, you hope to have Carter Vickers and Starfelt back as soon as possible, and sort of just getting that partnership back together. I know there will be, others pushing for it, like the two that are playing there now, but I think they are your pairing as soon as they're both fit.
Yeah, it just feels to me in the last couple of games that the opposition have had more of an outball, because Carter Vickers has not been playing. St Mirren especially were able to get a lot of success from counter-attacks, and Motherwell had a little bit of the same on Saturday. I just think when Carter Vickers is there, he is so good at just like making defensive things look so easy and just giving the ball back to attacking players.
Look, absolutely. And I think when you play against Celtic, I've been there myself, when you played against weaker, so-called weaker defenders, or players that haven't been playing a lot of football, they're always targeted. They're the ones you want to go for. Like, that's the conversation in the change room beforehand, right? Test him today, turn him, let's see what he's got, try and play on him. He's not played a lot of football. So the likes of Welsh will be targeted. There's no question. That will be the chat in probably Motherwell's room, or whoever's going to be playing at Celtic, just because they've not played a lot of football at that time, or any other one that plays in the fullback areas or whatnot. That's just, you get a boost by that at times. If Celtic, change their lineup and it's younger and it's inexperienced, or people that haven't been playing football a lot, you try and go for those areas. It's pretty obvious that's what you have to do, because obviously there's not a lot of weakness within a Celtic side. So you've got to try and get anything you possibly can.
Asim, how concerned are you about the prospect of Welsh and Jens going into Wednesday night?
Yeah, I think you wonder as well if that's had an impact on kind of Joe Hart's form as well, just that uncertainty, playing, as Scott says, playing with a different partnership that haven't played a lot of football together, and likewise with the goalkeeper, the communication, things like that, because I think Joe Hart's had a ropey couple of games as well, and maybe no coincidence that when someone like the calming presence of Carter Vickers isn't there. I think usually when Carter Vickers is there, whoever he's partnered with seems to raise it, or he brings out the best in them as well. So if it was like Carter Vickers with Jens or with Welsh, you don't notice it as much. It's when the two of our first choice pairing are out, that's when I'm a bit concerned that going into Wednesday, it's not ideally you'd like one of them back, but if it's not looking likely, then yeah, we go with Jens and Welsh. And yeah, it's concerning just because of the last couple of games. If you look at our defensive record before that, and even obviously last season, we've been pretty consistent, but a large part of that has been the fact that Carter Vickers has pretty much been an ever present. So yeah, it's one to look out for. We know that we're going to be under quite a bit of pressure with Leipzig. They had a big win as well at the weekend, so it's not ideal going into that without your main partnership. But yeah, we've got a big squad for this reason, and maybe it's a chance for one of the other two or both of them to really show what they're made of at the highest stage.
Yeah. The other thing from the weekend, Scott, was the Callum McGregor red card, which I don't know why I'm laughing, because it wasn't really particularly funny at the time, but I just thought it was brilliant the way he just took the red and he walked off. He didn't seem too happy either. I think he was kind of pretty unhappy with the pass Hatate had given him, but I just loved that moment as a captain.
Oh, you wouldn't be happy with that, would you? Because you've just had to sacrifice yourself. And
gives him a rest next weekend, no?
Well, he doesn't like rest, does he?
Yeah.
He likes to play every week, which is fantastic. But look, on one hand, it's very, very quick thinking from him. That's what I will say. And he's seen and panicked straight away and knew the danger of what was going to happen next. So for every Celtic fan, it's clever play. For everyone else, it's pure, housery. But you have to do it. If you're a winner, that's what you do. Simple as that. And then it was right in the dying minutes as well. You got to take one for the team, and he did. He put his body right in there.
Yeah, I loved it. What would your reaction be if you'd have been the player pulled down and in goal?
Of course. What do you think? You'd be absolutely raging. You'd probably want to chase him down a tunnel. But it's like I said. If you're Celtic end, it's fantastic. If you're the opposition, it's like biggest frustration ever, isn't it? It's cheating. A lot of people say, but hey, it's part of the rules. He gets a red card for it, so he's got the punishment.
Yeah. If we move on to the European scene, guys, RB Leipzig on Wednesday evening. It's a 5:45 p.m. kickoff Scottish time. Don't know what the hell it is over where you are, Scott, but you can work that out later on in the week.
Well, the clocks have changed, so I don't know.
The other game in the group between Real Madrid and Shakhtar is at 8 p.m, so we'll get to watch that afterwards as well. How are we feeling about this game, Scott?
Well, look, I said just before, need a win. Look, I'll go one step back and say we need a result, to stay within the opportunities. Obviously, a win would be nice, and it would give you real clear, thoughts of actually reaching the last 16 and keeping in there with the likes of Shakhtar as well. But if you take something from that game and then bring it back to Celtic Park, then there's every opportunity, isn't there? So look, you talked about the defence there. That is a big concern. There has been other injuries as well since this international break. So, look, I think the performances have been there in Europe so far, though. So I'm quite buoyant in terms of going into this game. And obviously Leipzig got a good result over the weekend, but they haven't been, firing on all cylinders this season, have they? Let's be real. But we'll just have to wait and see how we perform. But I think it's a really good game for Celtic as well. Obviously, after coming back from this international break, and everyone a little bit like, oh, the performance, this, that, the next. I think it just allows Celtic to get going again. And the players will really, really be looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, you touch on Leipzig at the weekend. They did beat Bochum 4-0. I'm hesitant to put that down as a major result for them. Bochum are the poorest team in the Bundesliga by a mile. To give you an idea, they have Christian Gamboa playing for them, and I think Sadi Janko is also in their squad, so I think they're headed for relegation. But Leipzig did beat them 4-0, a double from Werner and a double from Nkunku. In the other games, Real Madrid drew 1-1 against Osasuna, their first drop points of the season, and Barcelona have replaced them at the top of La Liga. And Shakhtar Donetsk won 6-1 away to Metalist Kharkiv in their top of the Ukrainian league. I think it's going to be interesting. Scott says, a victory is what we need. I think a victory would be really important as well, given that we didn't get over the line in that game in match day 2. There is a scenario, Asim, that can see us drawing this game and then winning our next 2 home games and still having a chance to make the last 16 with possibly even as low as 7 points. But I think you are relying on Real Madrid to take care of business, and I think the chances for me of Real Madrid winning every single game in the group, I would say, are kind of relatively low. I think they'll cop one somewhere, hopefully against us. But where do you come down in this on Wednesday in terms of what's a good result?
I think there's even a scenario where if we lost on Wednesday and then won the next couple of home games, I think there was someone that had put that
Go
up as
through
well.
and 7 points.
The thing for me is I don't think a win's a must. I think a win would put us in a very strong position, because then you've got Leipzig probably still sitting on 0 points at that stage. So it'd almost rule them out, and then you've got you've got 2 home games coming up. So for me, as long as we take something, I think I'd be happy with a draw if away in Leipzig, and then you rely on Real Madrid hopefully beating Shakhtar in the doubleheader as well. I think the fact that we've got the 2 games after this is really good as well. Just it means that if we can pick up anything in Leipzig and then try and take care of your 2 home games, I think that should be enough, without even possibly needing anything against Real Madrid. I agree with you. I don't think Real will win all 6 games, and it comes down to when potentially they might slip up. But I'd fancy them to take care of Shakhtar twice, and if we can just pick up at least the same amount of points as Leipzig in this doubleheader, I think it will put us in a good position for second and definitely third at least. But the other thing for me is this is the real kind of test now. Obviously, Real Madrid was brilliant. We played well for the first half and really put in a good show, and then the same in against Shakhtar. But I think Leipzig's it's going to be a tougher challenge than the Shakhtar game. I think they'll be better than Shakhtar were, and I think we'll be under a bit more pressure. So it'll be interesting to see how we cope at this level now. Because I think it'll come down to these two games ultimately whether we can get that second spot. So I just really hope that we can, put on another good performance and this time come away with a positive result, which for me would be a draw as well.
The one thing about the game on Wednesday is, unlike a lot of German venues, we're not going to be going into a really hostile venue. I don't think the stadium's going to be full. I don't think it's going to be particularly loud. I mean, that must be a good thing for us, Scott. I know it's not a major factor in the game, but it must be a better thing than going into, like a Dortmund or somewhere like that.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think it's probably not something really players think about too much, but it can probably have an effect within the game itself at times if you're under a lot of pressure and the crowd gets on top of you as well. So I suppose, but it's all about the performance, really, isn't it? In terms of Celtic, and look, Celtic are capable of going there and winning this game. There's no question for me. You mentioned two names there that really worry me though, in Werner and Cuckoo. World class player. And Werner's obviously had great experience, and Nkuku's been courted by some big clubs within Europe now, and particularly in the Premier League. So, and you're talking about Celtic not having their partnership at the back, so it could be a busy night, for Celtic as well. But again, the way Celtic want to play, if they can get on the ball and dominate the possession, and make sure that the one thing that they haven't done in Europe at the moment is taken their chances when they've come, completely. And you can't afford to miss those chances when they come up, and they have to be really, really clinical on the night if they're to get something from this.
Yeah, hopefully Yakamaka's back as well.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, I think it'll be a very different game from the last one in Warsaw against Shakhtar, because I think RB Leipzig will have a lot more possession than Shakhtar had. So I don't think it'll be a case of us trying to break them down. I think this will be one for the kind of more counter-attacking style, and it might suit Kyogo, having that kind of space in behind. Whereas against Shakhtar, you've seen it was us trying to break them down for pretty much 70% of the game. So I think that'll be an interesting watch as well. It might be similar to the kind of Leverkusen game last season. I think Leipzig, they hadn't missed. They've had a few kind of big wins. They had Dortmund a few weeks ago that they beat comfortably at home. So I think the last couple of home games they've done well, and then they got beat quite comfortably last time away at Mönchengladbach maybe. So yeah, we just don't know what Leipzig will turn up. I think they're capable of putting on a good performance, but again, we've seen them collapse when they played Shakhtar at home. So I think it's a really interesting one, and it's really intriguing just to see where we're at as well, in terms of the progression in Europe, and we just got such a good chance in this group, which is great to see. Like we're going into this double header with in a decent position, regardless of the result on Wednesday. But yeah, if we can pick up something positive, it's just going to really give us a springboard, because we've got so many big games coming up, and it'll be great if we can come away with something.
There's a massive opportunity for us in this group. I think we've been really fortunate with the draw. It's been a favourable draw for probably the first time in our history. I just don't want it to be a group of kind of missed chances, literally, because it feels like that already, that 1 point from our first two games, when you could potentially have been looking at maybe 4 or something like that, given how we've played. You don't want these games to keep ticking by, because there's only 6 matches, and if you lose on Wednesday night, you're suddenly potentially looking at bottom place, and I think that would be a bit of a gutter, as much as the Champions League's a tough place. So I just really hope that we really get, take that opportunity, Scott, and get that big result that we've been kind of craving under Ange in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it definitely is, very important that we talked about it, that this game, that they get a result, but the home form within the Champions League has just not been there over the course in recent history, and that needs to change massively. They're going to have to take maximum points in those 2 games, which, if you're looking at it on paper, is just not there for Celtic at this point. And if you're looking at history, but possible, I think if they're to get that 1 win at home, then the momentum can change going into that game against Shakhtar. That it's everything to play for. It's a cup final in that game, or more or less, when you look at it, almost for Celtic to bring them there if they were to get a result here and then get maximum points against Leipzig at home. And it's all to play for. But look, and there's still possibility even if they don't get the result against Leipzig, but it brings Leipzig back into the running of things as well. So you want to keep them at bay a little bit because they have to play Real Madrid thereafter. This double header. So look, it's everything to play for, isn't it? Still, and it's quite interesting at the moment. But look, obviously, all things. Let's just hope that can get a real positive result on on Wednesday, no matter what the performance is. If they go there and get something, I think that's the most important thing.
Just in terms of players being available, not available, as we say, Ange's very hopeful Giakoumakis will be back. Carter Vickers, as we say, we'll wait and see. Starfelt won't be fit for the game. The other one I wanted to raise that I've just happened to come across by chance is Liel Abada. You may remember last year in the Europa League he missed a game at Real Betis because of Yom Kippur. Takes place, I think, between Tuesday evening and Wednesday evening this week, meaning that we haven't had it confirmed at all. I'm sure Ange will be, if he's not asked about it, he'll let people know in his press conference. But I would assume that Abada won't be available for the game on Wednesday, because of that. I mean, if he wasn't available last year, he wouldn't be available this year. So he would be a bit of a miss as well, because I think he's one that I'd quite fancied maybe to start the game, because I don't think Maida's been quite at it recently, and I wanted Abada in there. So if not Abada, possibly will be Maida, or would you go with Haksabanovic, guys?
It's a tough one because you know what Maida gives you in terms of his work ethic and away from home. Like Asim says there, without the ball a lot, you need his work ethic and his work rate, and he can get up and down for you as well, and double up in those wide areas when needed. So, look, I think probably the tried and tested is Maida, and Angel, I think, would pick him to start this game. But his form has been disappointing this year. I have to say it's not been great at all. To be perfectly honest, in what we expect from last year, the work rate and ethic is great, but still need to see more quality, in the final third from him, and in 1v1 situations, and and getting goals, which is few and far between this season so far.
Asim?
Yeah, I thought he might have started with Haksabanovic at the weekend there. I thought it would have been a good one for him to start and for us to kind of see him properly start a domestic home game. But I think, like Scott says, I think he might go with Maida again, just for that, again, energy and pressing and that side of it. But we do need to see a bit more quality from him in front of goal and just his kind of end product. I think it is there. We've seen that he can produce, but it's been quite hit and miss. With Haksabanovic, still not seen a lot of him. In the small glimpses, I've thought he's looked impressive. And I was surprised to see him starting against Shakhtar away. But I think he's a good option as well. I wouldn't have any problems if he was to start him. And I'm just hoping Jota brings his A game as well. I thought he was slightly off at the weekend. Same with Matt O'Reilly. So you just want to see our kind of players just get back to that kind of sparkling form and just enjoying the football again. I just thought the weekend was a bit sloppy at times and it didn't seem like we were fully at it. But sometimes that's the case after international break. So I'm hoping a few more days in the training field and they know the importance of this game should bring out the best in some of those players.
Scott, you really like Matt O'Reilly. I like him as well. He's been really quiet for me in the last couple of games. Tiny bit concerned about that.
Yeah, look, I suppose. I mean, he's still very young, isn't he? And where he's come from before coming to Celtic as well, at MK Dons. It's a big step up to play as many games physically at this higher level, you could say, and the pressures that come with it. And the problem being now there is no Tom Rogic to go toe to toe with O'Reilly as well. We're sort of relying on O'Reilly to give us everything right now, and that was always the one place that I did say, and we've sort of talked about, that number 10 role, someone else being able to fill that that void if he needs a rest, which is interesting. I don't think they found that in anyone. Maybe Haksabanovic can do that, but he's not been played there so far. But look, I still think he's really, really key to anything that Celtic do, and I really, really rate him. I think he's only going to get better as time goes on. But look, there's going to be times in the season where players do have poor games. It's just human nature, and particularly when they're this young and still learning and growing. I think you're going to have those little dips at times. But like Asim said, hopefully we can see the likes of himself and Jota get back to their very, very best in the coming games, this one and obviously the one on the weekend, which is just as important as well. Being away from home, horrible. I mean, it's fitted in at the moment. These Champions League games are all coming, and then having to go and play away from home. It's a real challenge and a test for the players themselves to keep going. I think last year it didn't really fall that way in terms of being home games a lot of the time. It's just how the luck of the draw goes, I suppose. But they were always the most difficult games, in my time, in my experience, that when you had a European game and the amount of effort you put into them, and then you have to go and play away from home and an early kickoff at that as well on a Saturday, it's very, very difficult.
I think Livingston away is one of the post-European matches as well coming up, so I'm already petrified for that one. Just finally, Asim, would you do anything different in the midfield here? I mean, I didn't think the midfield was great at the weekend, and given that we're away from home against a good side, I guess that Ange probably won't change or deviate at all. Would you be tempted to play Abelgard or Moy and change it up at all?
I think these are the kind of games that we probably thought there might be a slight change with the likes of Abelgard, but just because of the lack of minutes he's had, I just can't see it. And I don't know if it's a game for Moy. He might come on depending on how the game goes, but I'd imagine he'll go with the same three of. Hatate was probably our best player, I thought, at the weekend. I think he was given man of the match as well, and for me, he was one of the few bright sparks. But yeah, I think going forward, it is the kind of game where you'd maybe see him push McGregor further forward and play someone like Abelgard with Hatate or O'Reilly. But just given his lack of game time, I think it will be the same three. So I think we kind of know roughly what the lineup will be, barring the injury situation. And yeah, it's just another chance for these guys to show what they can do. In terms of other options that you might change, I just can't see it. We've not really experimented much with different players, so I just don't see Ange suddenly throwing a curveball like that.
Okay, we'll wait and see. Looking forward to it, guys. It's going to be a big game. I feel like our moods are going to kind of go drastically off in two courses depending on how the game goes. We will have a preview to the game tomorrow when I'll actually be in Leipzig, and we'll also hear from a special guest as well. So we'll chat to you then. Thank you very much for your time today, guys, and we'll catch up with you soon.